At my baby shower, my mom gifted me a onesie that said, "Surprise, baby of a disappointment." She swore it was a joke. So I laughed and did this. 3 months later, there was loud banging at the door. Yeah, that was the moment I realized my child's first piece of clothing was also my family's final word on my existence. But let me back up. It was supposed to be a sweet, low-key baby shower, homemade cupcakes, some Pinterest decorations. My husband stayed up taping to the wall at 2 a.m. a few relatives, a few friends, you know, the normal stuff people do when they're excited for a baby. My husband, Adam, was the only person in the room who looked remotely happy for me. Everyone else, well, they came to perform. My mom wore pearls. My sister, Rita, wore a floor-length dress like she was walking the Met Gala carpet. And every time someone asked her how I was doing, she somehow answered by talking about her upcoming promotion. Classic Rita. Anyway, I'd almost made it through the afternoon without a single emotional landmine. Then came the gifts, a few baby blankets, some pacifiers, a tiny giraffe with a tag still attached, nice touch, and more. Then my mom handed me a gift bag with a glittery grandma tippy sticker on the front. And I should have known. Inside was a onesie, white cotton size 0 to 3 months imprinted in big black letters. Surprise, baby of a disappointment. There was a second where the room fell dead silent. Then I did what every emotionally well-adjusted eldest daughter does when her mother publicly mocks her life choices. I left. Big laugh like it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. "Oh my God, Mom, that's hilarious," I said, holding it up for everyone to see. "You've still got that edgy sense of humor." "Ha." My mom beamed like she just won an Oscar. Rita gave a little smirk and said, "Well, you were a surprise." And someone, I think my uncle, chuckled and muttered, "Apple doesn't fall far." Ha. It was the kind of laugh that gets stuck in your throat and turns sour on the way down. I smiled until my jaw hurt. Then I set the onesie down. I went into the kitchen. I washed my hands. I stared at the sink. And I made a decision. I wasn't going to raise my child around people who thought this kind of thing was funny. Round people who clapped when I laughed at being insulted. Round people who would absolutely turn around and tell my kid one day, "You know, your mom was never supposed to be born, right?" Nope. But I didn't say any of that. Not yet. Because something else happened that night. Something I didn't see coming. And that's when I realized just how deep the rut really went. The onesie was just the punchline. The real joke had been running for 30 years. And I was always the punchline. After the shower, I did what any unbothered, emotionally balanced pregnant woman does after being insulted in front of friends and family. I went home, sat on the floor of my closet, and cried until I gave myself a migraine. Adam tried to comfort me. He really did. But what do you say when your wife sobs? Do you think they're going to treat our baby like me? He didn't have an answer. And that was the problem. I already knew the answer. See, this wasn't a one-off. It wasn't like my mom suddenly turned into a mean girl with a sense of humor shaped by TikTok comments. This had been building since birth, my birth specifically, which was apparently a massive inconvenience. I was the oops baby, the midlife crisis wrapped in a hospital blanket. My parents had Rita when they were in their 20s, planned, perfect, the golden child. Then I showed up uninvited like an unpaid bill, and they never let me forget it. Growing up, it was always, "You're lucky we kept you. Honestly, you ruined our empty nest plans. We didn't get to travel because of you." They'd say it with that casual cruelty, like they were telling me what was for dinner. Rita, of course, never heard this. She was the one they chose, which made me what? An accident, a consequence, a monthly oversight. I used to tell myself they loved me differently, that it wasn't worse, just less photogenic. But that lie got harder to hold up every time they forgot my birthday or skipped my high school graduation because Rita's ballet recital was on the same day. And she worked so hard, Christine, in our house. Being the older sibling didn't mean you were wiser. It meant you were better. When I got my acceptance letter to a state university, my mom congratulated me by saying, "Rita got into Yale. But this is still good for you." I worked through college. Rita didn't. I wore clearance rack suits to job interviews. Rita's closet looked like a Banana Republic showroom. And when I got engaged to Adam, my dad actually asked, "Are you sure you don't want to wait for someone with a little more ambition?" Yeah, that was the family, brutally honest. Which is a polite way of saying emotionally reckless with zero accountability. Adam, bless him, tried his best. He kept telling me, "You're not them. You don't have to be them." And I believe that in theory. But then I'd hear my mother's voice in my head every time I bought something full price, every time I said no to helping with another bill, every time I chose myself. I heard her say, "Christine, stop being selfish." It wasn't just words. They made me believe I owed them something for being born. Even when I started doing okay for myself, when I got promoted, when Adam and I bought a small house, when we finally paid off our car, they found a way to make me feel guilty. "You should help your sister out. She's doing important work," my mom would say. "Rita's doing international consulting," my dad added, "and she's got that baby to look after." Funny, because I was the one who babysat that baby most weekends for free while Rita worked. I even sent money to help with my parents' mortgage when my dad's got cut. "No thanks, no. We appreciate you." Just a follow-up text 2 weeks later asking for help with their utility bill. So, yes, when I saw that onesie, I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it confirmed what I'd suspected my whole life. They didn't see me as a real person. I was the family scapegoat with a debit card. And now I was having a baby of my own. The night of the baby shower, I sat in bed with my laptop and opened a blank document. I started typing out a list. Not a to-do list. Not a birth plan. A line. A line I would not let them cross anymore. No more jokes at my expense. No more uninvited visits. No more financial help. Ever. No access to the baby unless I explicitly say so. No backdoor manipulation by Rita. Adam looked over and said, "What's that?" I said, "Our new family policy." But of course, they didn't make it easy. The morning after the baby was born, I got a text from my mom. "Well, is she here or not?" No name, no congratulations. Just that. I didn't respond. A few hours later, Rita posted a throwback photo of us as kids on Instagram with the caption, "Can't wait to meet my new niece wherever she is," because passive aggression is a family art form. That first week, my parents texted, called, and even sent a card to the hospital addressed to Adam. Only the front said, "Congratulations, Dad." Inside was a $20 Starbucks gift card and a sticky note that read, "Maybe this will help. Hope you can find better work soon." I wish I were joking. Adam looked at me and said, "This isn't about me. It's about controlling you." And he was right. That's when we decided we were moving. Not far. Just far enough that they couldn't pop by, for enough that no one could accidentally drop in on the baby, far enough that I could breathe. We didn't announce it. We didn't give them our new address. When my mom asked when she could come see the baby, I replied, "I'll let you know when I'm ready." She never asked again. Rita texted 2 days later, "Wow, really embracing the whole cut off your family vibe." I didn't respond, but I did add her to the block list. That week, I made a private folder titled Evidence. Inside it, I saved screenshots of the onesie, their text, Rita's posts, just in case they ever tried to make me the villain. I wanted proof. I wanted receipts. Adam called it my emotional insurance policy. I called it self-defense. But even then, part of me hoped, stupidly, quietly, that they'd apologize, that they'd show up differently, that maybe the baby would soften them. They didn't. They escalated. And what happened 3 months later made one thing clear. They didn't just want to see the baby. They wanted control. I always assumed that cutting someone off would feel like slamming a door, loud, dramatic, final. But in real life, it's quieter, more surgical. Like slipping out of a burning building and locking the door behind you, not to hurt anyone inside, but because you know they'll only drag you back into the fire. I didn't send some big family group text. I didn't write a heartfelt letter. I just stopped. No more texts. No more updates. No more money. I quietly canceled the recurring transfers I'd set up to help with my parents' mortgage. That was $600 a month. Gone. I stopped Venmoing Rita for emergency childcare expenses, which somehow always coincided with her spa days. Gone. I pulled out of the shared family emergency fund I stupidly agreed to 2 years ago, which basically meant Christine pays for everything fund also gone. I didn't explain. I didn't justify because the second you start explaining to people like that, they twist it into something they can argue with. The reaction, of course, was immediate. First came the passive-aggressive texts. Notice the mortgage didn't go through. Hope everything's okay. Translation, where's our money? Human ATM, Reader. Hey, your niece really needs her meds this month. Can you send your usual? Funny how her niece only existed when money was involved. I ignored them, so they escalated. My mom called and left a voicemail that started with, I don't know what's going on with you, but this attitude is unacceptable, and ended with, if you think you can punish us by using money, then maybe you're not mature enough to be a parent, right? Because maturity means funding your emotionally abusive parents. Well, they mock your life choices and insult your baby before she's even born. Then came the guilt trip raid. We were counting on you. Your father has high blood pressure. Stress like this could kill him. Dad, I worked hard my whole life. Is this the thanks I get, Reader? Wow, I knew motherhood would change you, but this is just cruel. Also, Rita, letting mom and dad meet the baby would cost you nothing. That was the moment I almost cracked because she was right. It would have been easy to let them hold her, snap a few photos, pretend just for a second that we were one of those smiling families you see in Hallmark movies. But then I remembered the onesie. And I remembered my mom's smug smile. And I remembered the way I laughed, so I wouldn't cry. And I thought, what happens when my daughter's old enough to understand the jokes? What happens when they start making her the punchline? Oh, not again. So I replied once, and only once, me to Reader. Letting them near her would cost me more than you could ever understand. Blocked. Then I changed my number quietly. Just for my immediate circle. No dramatic announcement, just peace. For the first time in my life, I started sleeping through the night. Not because the baby slept. She absolutely didn't. But because I wasn't bracing for emotional landmines every time my phone buzzed. But peace never lasts when people like my parents don't get their way. It started with a Facebook post. My mom shared a baby photo of me and wrote, I held my daughter like this once. Now I'm not even allowed to hold my granddaughter. Cue the sympathy comments from distant relatives who hadn't spoken to me since 2007. Rita followed up with a vague story about how some people punish their families for sport and how parenthood should make you softer, not colder. I said nothing. I just archived the post. Screenshots dated saved for the file I'd started in a folder titled In Case They Escalate. Turns out I'd need it sooner than I thought, because a few weeks later I got a call from Adam's school. They'd received an anonymous tip saying he might be mentally unstable and possibly dangerous around children, which was laughable since Adam teaches first grade and once cried during Finding Nemo. The school took it seriously, of course. They had to. There was an internal review. Adam had to meet with the principal and HR. But luckily, his coworkers backed him up completely and nothing came of it. But I knew who made that call. I couldn't prove it. But I didn't need to. That kind of vindictiveness has a signature, and my family had been signing it for years. So that night I printed everything, texts, social media posts, voicemails, all the emails. Every shred of emotional manipulation they'd ever handed me like a party favor, and I called a lawyer. Not to sue, just to ask, if they show up, what can I do? He told me about restraining orders, about cease and desist, about how to document everything. And then he said something that stuck with me. You don't have to wait until they hurt your daughter. You can protect her now. So I did. I contacted every mutual relative I trusted, only a handful honestly, and told them, my daughter will not be in contact with my parents or reader. Please respect our decision. Most said they understood. A few pushed back, one and said, but family is everything, to which I replied, then it's a good thing I'm building a new one. We changed pediatricians, switched to a new daycare across town, removed our names from every registry my mom had access to, deleted old photos, started fresh. For the first time in my life, I was choosing peace over approval. And the silence, it was bliss, until 3 months later, when the silence was broken by loud, frantic banging on our front door. Adam jumped. The baby stirred. Then we heard a voice outside. Christine, we need to talk. I looked out the window and froze. It was my mother, disheveled, crying, and standing next to her, a man in a cheap suit holding a clipboard. Debt collector. They weren't just here to beg. They were desperate. And in that moment, standing in my quiet home with my daughter in my arms, I knew they hadn't come to make peace. They'd come to take something, and I wasn't giving it up. I stood at the top of the stairs, baby in one arm, heart pounding as my mom kept banging on the door. The man next to her, clipboard, cheap suit, regret in his eyes, was clearly not part of the reunion she'd imagined. Debt collectors don't do hugs. Adam looked at me. Do you want me to? I shook my head. No, I've got this. I handed the baby to him and walked slowly to the front door. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. My mom saw my face through the glass panel. She started crying harder. Loud performative sobs. Always a flair for drama. Christine, please just talk to me. We're in trouble. We need your help. You can't just shut us out like this. Behind her, the debt collector shifted uncomfortably. He was holding a stack of papers, trying not to look like he wanted to evaporate. I crossed my arms and said loud, enough for both of them to hear. This isn't a good time, and I think you know you shouldn't be here. But we're family, she sobbed. And for the first time in my life, I felt it. Not guilt, not fear. Clarity. I didn't do this to you, I said, voice calm. You did. And then I closed the blinds. I could hear her scream from the other side of the door. But I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I went back upstairs, kissed my baby's forehead, and told Adam, let's call the lawyer. I didn't need to guess what happened next. I knew they'd escalate. People like my mom, they don't reflect, they retaliate. And right on cue that night, Rita posted a video, face fully made up, voice trembling with carefully rehearsed emotion. My sister cut off our parents after they made one mistake. She's using her baby to punish them. They're financially ruined. They cry every day. If you know her, please reach out and tell her she's better than this. I laughed out loud when I saw it. Better than what exactly? Better than setting boundaries. Better than walking away from abuse disguised as tradition. I didn't reply. I didn't share it. I didn't try to defend myself because I didn't have to anymore. The next day, my lawyer sent a formal cease and desist letter, not just to my mom, but to Reader, too. Any future attempts to contact me, Adam, or our daughter would be documented and used as evidence. I wasn't bluffing, neither were the consequences. They try everything, emails from burner accounts, anonymous voicemails. One showed up as unknown caller and left a message that said, your child will resent you for keeping her away from her family. Nice try, Mom. But the part that really sealed it for me, the lies started falling apart. Turns out when you've been performing for years, eventually someone forgets their lines. A cousin reached out, one I hadn't spoken to in ages. He said, hey, I saw what Rita posted. But I also remember the way they used to treat you growing up. Just wanted you to know I don't believe their version. One by one. Other relatives messaged me privately. Some apologized for not noticing. Some admitted they had always wondered why I seemed a little tense around my family. One aunt wrote, "I remember your mom saying you owed her for not getting an abortion. I never forgot that." I did, though. I'd buried it deep. But there was proof. They'd been saying the quiet part out loud for years. So I did the unthinkable. I told the truth. I didn't make a public video. I didn't post some messy call-out thread. I just shared a simple message to a small group of extended family. I'm not cutting off my parents because of one joke. I'm cutting them off because of a lifetime of emotional manipulation, conditional love, and years of financial exploitation. The onesie was just the last straw. Attached were screenshots, photos, voicemails, no commentary, just facts. The silence that followed was delicious. A few people unfriended my parents. One relative forwarded me a message my mom had sent them, saying I'd lost my mind after giving birth and needed professional help. They were trying to discredit me now. It was their last card, and it failed because people started seeing the pattern, the lies, the desperation, and I started seeing who my real family was. The friend who drove across town just to bring me coffee and sit on the porch. The neighbor who left a handwritten note that said, "You're doing the right thing." The former coworker who mailed me a blanket for the baby with a card that read, "Your child will grow up free." That's the greatest gift of all. It's been for months. Since the onesie, we moved to towns over, smaller place, bigger piece. We changed pediatricians again, new daycare, a new phone number, a new chapter. The baby sleeps a little better now. Adam laughs more. I smile without checking if someone's watching. Sometimes I get sad, not because I miss them, but because I mourn the version of myself who kept hoping they'd change, who believed that if I just gave enough money, time, forgiveness, I'd finally be seen. She tried so hard and now she's gone, replaced by someone stronger, someone quieter, someone who doesn't need to prove anything to people who will never clap when she wins. The other day I found the onesie stuffed at the bottom of a drawer I hadn't touched since we moved. I stared at it for a long time. Then I put it in a box labeled evidence, taped it shut, filed it away, not to hold onto the pain, but to remind myself never again. I don't know if my parents will keep trying. I don't care, because every time I look at my daughter, her big eyes, her wild laugh, her little hand wrapped around mine, I know one thing for sure. She will never think love comes with a price tag. She will never learn to laugh through humiliation. She will never have to earn affection from people who resent her for existing. Me. I'm not a disappointment. I'm a mother. And I finally know what it means to protect something you truly love. That's the story. Not the one I ever imagined telling, but the one I needed to live through to finally understand what love isn't. If you've ever had to make a decision like this or even thought about it, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Did I do the right thing? Was I too harsh or not harsh enough? Let me know in the comments. And if this story meant something to you, or if you just want to hear more stories like it, hit that subscribe button.